Cost you.
What?
Prime, Netflix, YouTube TV, it adds up.
Good thing local radio and TV stations bring us hometown games free.
But that could change. Tell Washington. Modernize the rules so your local stations keep bringing you the sports you love for free. Text radio to 39179.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text stop to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
I can't believe it took me this long to start using the sound effect from Good Burger.
Why?
When Dexter, Keenan Thompson, whose family, by the way, is from Lynchburg, Virginia, crashes into Sinbad's car.
Why?
The pained wondering of why. But when people are missing opportunities or making bad decisions, it's a logical time to ask,
why?
Because there was an example of this that began on Monday afternoon. In fact, we touched on it to an extent yesterday in the Fast Lane.
And guess what? We keep receipts.
Fast Lane, Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts, if you missed it. And that is Liberty's decision. Somebody over in their creative services, athletics marketing, to put out the tweet, may have been on Instagram, to get my usher on for a second. I did not see that one, but I saw it on Twitter. Wishing former Flames wide receiver CJ Daniels good luck as his new and more well-paying team, the Miami Hurricanes, competed for the national championship. And it begs the question, where's JMU on this? Like, what in the world are the Dukes missing about this situation and opportunity? There were so many opportunities to utilize this. And again, I have gone back and looked at their social media page, particularly Twitter, because...
And guess what? We keep receipts.
Or they keep receipts on their social media platforms. And it's not there. To get my usher on, I haven't looked at Old Dominions as well, although I don't think there were really any prominent ODU Monarchs on the field in the national title game, hence why we really haven't discussed them. But there's one former Liberty Flame, CJ Daniels, and a number of former JMU Dukes, starting with their head coach. Included in that, members of the coaching staff, as well included the special teams coordinator. And what do you know? But there was even a moment in the game where literally it was all the JMU ideas that got taken to Indiana and culminated with this moment.
Fletcher behind Beck, 2 receivers into the boundary left. CJ Daniels wide to the right. It's a handoff running right to Fletcher. Has room outside. He may go inside the 30 of Indiana. He'll go all the way. Touchdown Fletcher. A quick pop-up right tackle. He bounced it out to the outside, and he never got touched. A 57-yard run. And Miami is on the board, and their fans here in their home stadium are going crazy.
Yes, they were going crazy for that moment in a stadium that was actually more Indiana fans. But CJ Daniels got the shout out for his block on Mark Fletcher's touchdown run that helped Miami make that a game once again. Meanwhile, no such situation when it comes to JMU. They had a blocked punt by a former JMU Duke, Mikhail Camara, on a unit, special teams, coached by a former JMU Duke coach. And of course, the team was coached by a former JMU head coach, Kurt Signetti. Why is this not on the JMU Duke's social media platforms? And I get it, much like that highlight we mentioned last night on the VTRN Sports app with Sean McDonough on the radio call. Audio is, I guess we should call it, because I consume radio, for those watching VTRN Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube, on my mobile phone. Yes, that's a photo of my kids from this past summer that you may have seen. And the thing is, this is a missed opportunity for promotion. TJ Am I off base, or can I ask you to steal another Good Burger quote here?
Yo, man, back me up on this.
Can you back me up on this?
I definitely see where you're coming from, Ed. Remember a week or two ago, Shane was on the show, and he said there may still be JMU people who feel hurt by Kurt's departure and his poaching of players. Maybe the people in charge of social media still feel that way. Or here's another way you can look at it, and call me crazy. Maybe you don't celebrate those players as much because Group of Five schools are already seen as the minor league of college football, and you're celebrating those players going to bigger schools and instead of celebrating as JMU Dukes, if that makes sense.
No, I see the merit behind
I know
that.
some people, I was talking about this with an old friend real quickly, and he felt like while he understood Liberty's praise for CJ Daniels on Instagram, he also felt like it was like, it's different when you're celebrating players going to the NFL. They left your college to go to the pros, whereas CJ went to two different schools after Liberty. And it's like, are we really celebrating CJ Daniels for leaving a Group of Five school to go to Power Four and now he's in a better situation? Are you preaching that it's great to use Group of Five schools as a stepping stone, maybe?
I understand why your friend would have that thought. And I get that might be the thought going on behind the administration at JMU. Right. Here's my question. I get from a marketing standpoint, you're trying to sell, I'm going to curse for a second here. You're trying to sell hope to your fan base that somehow you can be on that level. Mm-hmm. Realistically, what JMU did this year is probably their ceiling.
I agree.
Of what they could do. It's the ceiling. Liberty made the New Year's Six Bowl, but if there was a college football playoff, they would have made the college football playoff 2 years ago. And they would have proceeded to have been waxed by the highest ranking team that did not make the 4-team playoff, which was Oregon that year. It would have been the same outcome, just a playoff game in Eugene, not a bowl game in Arizona. And it would have unfolded very similar to what the JMU Dukes experienced. And I understand there may be the thought in certain marketing departments and certain administrative departments of never admit a weakness. But here's the other thing. Are you really going to go the old Howard Johnson route, where they used to have crappy steak and hamburger meat, but they had a bunch of steak sauces and ketchup because they knew if you loaded it up on it, you would mask the taste of how bad it really was? Like, the old saying, pardon my French here, but don't pee on me and telling me it's raining. I understand there's some fans that may want that. Mm-hmm. I understand there are people that are in marketing and administration. Mm-hmm. I understand people in sales do that. That's part of what makes us different at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. I probably run counterculture to a lot of the sales, strategies that are out there. I'm just much more of a, look, here's the deal. Here's what we can do. Here's what we can do for you. Let's take it, take it or leave it. And I hate to use it like that because there's always some room to negotiate back and forth, but I'm not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes or use the old, I hate this phrase, but it's applicable, sales tactics that have been used for years ago. This is the classic situation. I get what your friend would be saying about JMU not wanting to acknowledge it. But unless they've got a pot of financial money lying around that Indiana has through their Big Ten revenue split and the largest alumni base in college football, 800,000 plus, so large they took over Miami's own stadium to play the Miami Hurricanes in the national championship game last night. They gobbled up the tickets. They're the reason why the secondary market drove up. I get it. Maybe we're too close to the sun on this. But people are starting to figure this out. And it goes back to, I would say, even ironically enough, the conversation you had. Please forgive me for not having the soundbite ready. But when you and Gary Stokin, outgoing CEO of the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, when you guys spoke, Peach Bowl CEO outgoing, and he brought up the idea that Group of Five schools should just go to a spring model, maybe so, maybe not. But they are clearly viewed in a second class. Eventually, I think there will be some kind of breakaway, and there will be more confirmation. It'll be kind of ironic because we'll go back to a world where all these schools, JMU, ODU, yes, Liberty as well, tried to get away from that, and then all of a sudden they're just back in that because the bigger name brands just created their own entity and froze out all the schools that for years tried to and maybe thought they got to that entity, and then all of a sudden they realized it just isn't happening. Like, I do think we're in some form heading down that road. But unless there's some magic pot of loot at the end of the financial rainbow for JMU to where they can compete with the Miamis of the world, the Indianas of the world, Texas, Ohio State, Michigan, insert your other high-paying blue blood college football program. I'll put Notre Dame into that as well. Then who are we kidding here?
I agree.
And, again, maybe I'm ridiculous by this, but to me, I credit Liberty because you're saying to other prospective recruits, they're the ones who are going to see this on social media the most, is the younger people. And that's how you communicate. And like it or not, you're communicating with potential football players that, may be looking at schools. They may go to a big school, realize they're not good enough to play there, and they need a bounce back option. You're raising your hand and saying, hey, we're Liberty. We can get you to a spot where you can transfer your way up to these opportunities. JMU helped 13 players transfer up with Kurt Signetti to Indiana, including Kamara, who made the impact. Aiden Fisher had a big game last night. There were others. Elijah Surratt had a big third down catch. All of those are former JMU Duke players. Nothing that JMU did or could have offered or done was realistically going to compete with the financial opportunities those players had, not to mention competing at a more competitive level to then boost their draft stock and say, we're not doing this against fellow Conference USA, Sunbelt, whomever teams. We're doing this against big boys in the college playoff who are playing that game. So it's worth considering us in your NFL draft projections. You can be a Quinyon Mitchell and go from Toledo to the pros. There will still be outliers of that. But you have a better chance and you're playing a higher percentage game by doing that. So I just don't see what could happen and change. Again, maybe I'm off base, but I get where your friend's coming from. But at some point, you're appealing to recruits and saying, hey, bounce back. And it's ironic because JMU has done a great job with Billy Napier. There are a number of former Florida Gators who are not fits for John Summerall, their new coach, who are looking for a home and have followed Billy Napier to JMU. And I think it makes it easier for them to bounce back. But the truth is, this is just the reality of where college athletics are in this day and age. Why not embrace it? And I give a lot of credit to Liberty for leaning into this as opposed to JMU and maybe they thought again, TV broadcast apparently pointed this out a lot last night about the JMU ties with Indiana. To get my confession on, I'm watching the All 22 because I like that view. And then I'm watching the End Zone Cam, the All Cast. And then, of course, I'm listening on the VTR and Sports app because why not? So I am not hearing the same level of gushing over JMU. But why not add on to it? It's free advertising. Like, what are you doing here? Like, I tell all the businesses that I encounter that advertise with us or consider advertising with us, they should have social media pages, whether you're paying for the reaches there or not. And there's a lot of fraud that goes on in digital advertising. You don't necessarily always get what you pay for, but you get, quote, metrics, end quote. So you believe it's true. Flawed thinking, but it happens. The reality is you should still just have a basic social media platform, even if you're not paying for the boost. And if you're JMU, do what Liberty did. Use yours to promote because these are prospective recruits who are going to look at it and go, wow, Liberty had a guy in the college football playoff. Maybe they didn't know about it, but now all of a sudden it's worth going there. And it's with the same staff. JMU, why not do the same thing?
Yeah. Liberty, you could argue, was the better sport in all this. They're like, we lost him a couple years ago, but hey, look where he is now. I mean, that's perfect. You're right.
I'm glad to hear that you backed me up on this.
Yo, man, back me up on this.
It warms my heart that you most definitely did that. I love the good burger.
But do you think this could be, I don't know, do you think Group of Five schools are going to start accepting this, though? Do you think Group of Five schools should just start accepting it, or should they fight to get the funds? Like Memphis, I think Liberties were obviously rich, but Memphis, for example, one of the richest Group of Five schools, should they just start doing the same thing, or should they use that funds to either accumulate more recruits and be able to keep them, or what do you do in that scenario?
I mean, I still pay as much as you reasonably can pay.
Right.
Like, I'm not under the guise that you're going to be spending more than other programs, but I mean, Ian McCall's mentioned it before, Liberty Flames athletic director. And by the way, you can touch on all this from a Liberty angle with Jon Manson from AseaofRed.com around 5:45 today in the fast lane. But for Liberty, they mentioned that they're one of the few schools where they have a really robust rev share program with their athletes. It's not on your SEC Big Ten, big time, Power 4 program level, but it's a strong rev share opportunity. You still should provide that because it will give you access to Group of Five talent in a way that not many other programs except the ones that are participating in the same NIL rev share slots would be able to compete with. And for Liberty, again, I think it's why it's justified pressure entering the season for Jamie Chadwell, but they're in a much more robust financial spot than the rest of Conference USA. I think they're a group of 6 and a group of 5 football land that I look at and believe there's a financial pathway to it. Tulane, SMU, Memphis, UNLV, Boise State, UNLV casino money, Boise State, and Liberty that are in their own financial stratosphere. And because of that, you have a chance to distinguish yourself with the acquisition of talent.
Yeah.
At least ride that as long as you can until the dust settles on whatever happens in college athletics. So that's where things can go. Meanwhile, the dust could settle on your case if you're involved in an auto accident, and you might not be properly represented. You might not get what you deserve. You might not even be in a spot where you need representation. You'll get the full assessment with trostlaw.com. They have been serving our area, sticking with the Miami theme, for
Not 1, not 2, not 3,
but 4+ decades, as they will continue to serve our area and love doing. And if they can't help you, and I, by the way, encountered some folks of mine who've reached out and they didn't think they could help. Guess what they did? They just said, we can't help you. So they didn't waste their time, the potential person who needed some assistance, with reaching out to somebody. They give an honest assessment. That's the value of trostlaw.com. Meanwhile, there are other topics worth addressing here in
It's time for Fast 5 at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
So there are a couple of other takeaways that just popped out from the college football playoff championship game last night. I know it's low-hanging fruit, and I understand this is a take that the national media will often mention, but it's worth repeating because there is a local angle to this as well. What Indiana just did last night could not have been done during the old era of college athletics. Like, it just wasn't. The structure of college athletics at that time, and frankly, the way the NCAA selected certain programs to enforce for penalties, but turned a blind eye to others, indicates this. That Indiana would have never accomplished a college football playoff championship, multiple games in the old era, because unless you were in the blue blood status, you couldn't have the history, the cachet to recruit top talent. And if you tried to buck the trend and maybe, have the bag man, hidden person paying money under the table, I'll use UNC as an example. UNC football and UNC basketball. Do you think the basketball players just sat around and let the football players get impermissible benefits? Or do you think it happened with both, but basketball got the blind eye treatment, football did not, because in the NCAA's eyes, UNC football, expendable and punishable. UNC basketball, we can't risk that when they've won a couple of national championships in the Roy Williams era and have 6 in their program history. I think we have an idea of that. This era, it's just all above board. Texas Tech can do what they've done. Miami can do what they're doing. I know they may be taking it to an extreme with some of their tactics, but you can go about it this way. By the way, I don't think Miami's the only one that's operating this way. I just think, like Miami in the 80s, they're just doing it more bluntly than the SEC programs were paying players with under-the-table hidden bagmen. Miami's just like, let's flaunt it all out. Did we not see it all last night? Back again on all of our social media platforms. But what Indiana did gives, I'm going to curse a word for a second here, hope to people in college athletics that they too can go down that road, which leads us into, I'm not saying it's as easy for Virginia Tech or Virginia. And we should not act like Indiana is a complete Cinderella. Indiana in the old structure would have been the equivalent of the complete Cinderella winning a championship. But in this era, they are in one of the 2 desirable football conferences. You could argue, and I think you might as well say this now, but the Big Ten is the more desirable, better football conference if you judge results in the college football playoff expansion era than the SEC. I think the SEC, honestly, is a deeper conference when you look at the bottom rung teams in the SEC. Mississippi State, Arkansas, those type of teams, I would say, are better than your Purdue's or your Northwesterns or your Minnesotas. But Indiana was in that camp until Cignetti took over. And yet there's an opportunity, because they're in a big conference, to do this. Now, I will say this. You have the ability to upgrade your roster. If you really want to get committed, you can do what we will mention in
Number 3.
and operate like the Miami Hurricanes have, which you can talk about their probable acquisition of Darian Mensah and go, that just feels a little dirty. And after he officially commits to Miami, we might need to go take a shower and clean ourselves off because it has kind of a scummy feel to it. But you may not have to go to that extreme. But even before that, Miami has obviously been working the, hey, we will pay players route in college athletics. Everyone thinks about Mr. John Ruiz, but clearly there's a lot of other money down there. I don't know who it all is. I'm not going to say fully with confirmation that, it's like, is this cartel money? You see all the bad videos of people and you're like, that money goes back to South Florida. No, I think we're beyond making those baseless allegations. But Miami is putting their money in. They are in the less financially desirable ACC, but they made a commitment. And they were a bad decision from Carson Beck and some other coaching gaffes like the special teams blocked punt. Don't get me started on the rugby style kick, by the way. I can't stand it. You're taking extra time and giving the pass rush or the punt blockers a chance to get there. Like, there's a reason it doesn't happen in the pros and it happens in college. The pros, they're smart enough to realize that ball is going to get blocked if you try rugby style. But Miami, outside of that, they've committed. Virginia started this year. Virginia Tech is now pledged with James Franklin. If you get your ducks in a row, you may not be the next Indiana, but you might be the next Miami from the ACC, where you're at least in the title game with a chance. There is at least hope for ACC programs because of what Miami did that just didn't exist in the previous iteration. And for all the chaos of the transfer portal, TJ, I think that's one of the positives that you can look at for this particular era.
I agree. Everything you said, I agree with.
Meanwhile,
Number 2.
there's also a nugget that's gone around on social media. And look, I have been as much of a defender of the Miami Hurricanes as anybody, but Warren Sapp was reportedly escorted out of an Indiana tailgate after licking a woman's face, among other ridiculous allegations, including drunk confrontations with Indiana fans. So, by the way, to get my usher on, it was one of the rare instances where I looked on the comment section of the person who originated this story. It's a guy who was like a quarterback for Indiana in the early 2010s. And he put it out there, and kudos to him for bringing this up. And by the way, if you're Warren Sapp and you don't like what people have to say about you in public, here's an idea. Maybe don't continue to engage in the same poor decision-making that has led to this. Licking the woman here, getting arrested for prostitution. I don't know if the charges were upheld, but having those out there. Dropped from the NFL Network for multiple sexual misconduct allegations. Like, there's a pattern here. Strip clubs before. Look, some people, there's a reason they go with prostitutions and strip clubs, because outside of that and the money they have, their character may be a little bit skeezy, and a lot of women might go, you're going to really have to pay me a lot to justify this. Not saying it's right, but I am trying to explain it away. Warren Sapp with that. I looked on social media, and nobody, including Miami fans, and the bulk of Miami fans were like, yeah, he may have been good for us, but this doesn't surprise anybody in the Miami fan orbit. Like, I know of nobody who sits there and goes, wow, Warren Sapp is surely being thrown under the bus. Every single person has basically been like, this guy has a history of petulant behavior. He's very selfish. He is all about himself. There's never any accountability. This is a guy that, I'm not joking here, he blocked me on Twitter. I have never interacted with the guy.
Really?
Like, I have no idea. If someone wants to see it, as I will show you during the break, Warren Sapp has blocked me on Twitter. The only thing I can think of is maybe once I reached out, and I've done this before, and hey, if you're up for an interview, DM us or send us an email. We'd love to have you on the fast lane. And that's the only thing. Is that such a warranting thing? Because, outside of that, I have no idea. But look, I'm not surprised by it. It is a dark cloud over the Miami Hurricanes. Meanwhile, the last little nugget on the Miami Hurricanes in the national championship was something that, we have to get to in
Number 1.
But no, if you've seen Michael Irvin on the sideline, first of all, the fact that it's obvious, it's on his social media pages how he's acting, meaning he's clearly doing this and apparently hiring, or at least has somebody on his team who is filming his antics to be on social media. Like, it's not just the cameras catching him. This is obviously, to an extent, very calculated. I don't think it's disingenuous. He is a Miami Hurricanes super fan. He regularly appears during the Rich Eisen Show, weekdays noon to 3, right here on the VTRN Sports app. But if you watch his antics, I will say this Saturday Night Live skit. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it.
No.
Sometimes I don't see a lot of Saturday Night Live, but sometimes the skits pop up. This one was probably the best description I think you could have imagined.
My mama was a hummingbird, and my daddy was a brick of cocaine.
My mama was a hummingbird. Peaceful. My daddy was a brick of cocaine. Michael Irvin acts like it. Look, TJ, you and I both have to partially claim this guy.
Yeah.
Because you're a Cowboys fan,
Absolutely.
and I like Miami, and this guy is tied to our programs.
Yeah.
And I'll just say this much. It may be genuine, but boy, the attention is rather comical and over the top. He is laughable. He's almost a caricature to a certain extent with his behavior.
Just go to the 90s documentary on Netflix. There's so many stories about Michael Irvin, and I'm sure there are plenty of stories out there.
Oh, there are plenty of them.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know if I should mention them because some of them aren't PG.
No, they are not. I'll just say this much. That's a topic for an after-hours show.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Netflix documentary, Boys Will Be Boys, is a
Yeah.
book by our friend Jeff Pearlman.
Yeah.
Don't always agree with him politically. He's a little more left than where I am, but I think the guy's fantastic. His research is great. His heart is genuinely in the right place, even if I disagree with it. I know I'm carrying two thoughts that make some people's minds explode. But if you read the book, you'll see more about Michael Irvin's salacious behavior and how it's netted him in some rather head-scratching scenarios. But it is absolutely worth bringing up.
I wonder if there will ever be a fast lane after dark now. I know you got kids and a wife, so maybe not, but will there ever be a fast lane after dark?
Can we write that down so I can make this like one of those social media deals that we put up? I mean, you might be able to twist my arm and get me down for certain stories or questions or topics because we love the fan interaction, which we will get to when we return here in the fast lane because we've got some on the college football playoff. We've got some interaction as well that has come from you on our idea with the JMU Duke. So we'll put a bow on a lot of this. There's still some things with college football. It's not going to go away. In fact, we will get more into the weeds on the Who's, Hokies, Liberty Flames, and JMU Dukes and their additions and signing classes and the direction heading in to the new season. We have plenty of weeks and months to do that before football returns on the college side of things. But when we return, your thoughts, so fan feedback comes your way next here in the Fast Lane.
Get more on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your trusted dealer serving Southwest Virginia and surrounding areas for over 50 years. With more selection, more value, and more finance options. Plus, your trade is worth more. Shop local and save more with straightforward pricing, plus exceptional service and selection. Your search ends at the Motor Mile. Choose from over 900 quality pre-owned vehicles, plus a massive selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, plus the used car superstore. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles at one location. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got more than any other dealer in the area. The Sheeler Motor Mile delivers choices. Here's the difference. Sheeler owns the finance company and makes getting approved for credit simple and easy on the Motor Mile. Flexible financing options for every budget to get you on the road fast. Get more on the Sheeler Motor Mile with a certified friendly staff and no games, no gimmicks. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
A cool food concept sparks curiosity. What about two concepts at one restaurant? That's even better. Oliver's on Rivermont is Lynchburg's first multi-concept restaurant. Pick items from the traditional Oliver's menu, the 801 Raw Bar menu, or mix and match. And you'll appreciate the consistency of Oliver's new kitchen and serving staff. Two cool concepts in one. Only available at Oliver's on Rivermont.
Do you have a sports card and memorabilia collection?
Wow.
Did you inherit one? Not sure what to do with it? BNC Sports has been your local hobby store for over 30 years, and they'll provide their professional assessment and can cash you out. No collection is too big or too small, so don't drop the ball. Stop by the mall or give us a call. BNC Sports, the game starts here.
Hi, this is Zach Mackey, the voice of Virginia Tech men's basketball. You're listening to the Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Well, we've got feedback we also have Jon Manson coming up in about 10 minutes here in the Fast Lane. So without further ado, it is time for us to, well, get a little fan feedback.
Come join the chat or give us a piece of your mind. Trey Lyle VT and Fastlane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, it's time for fan feedback in the Fast Lane.
So we were touching on the idea at the beginning of the Fast Lane, and if you missed it, it's not up just yet, but it will be after the show at Fastlane Ed Lane, however you listen to podcasts, because...
And guess what? We keep receipts.
Right there. Or you can actually go to Fastlane Ed Lane or VTR in Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube and go back to the beginning of the Fast Lane and just listen that way if you prefer, if you're that we're desiring of listening to it right now. But we brought it up. Liberty had the post Monday afternoon wishing former Flames and current Miami Hurricanes, or I guess now former because his career there is done, but Miami Hurricanes wide receiver CJ Daniels good luck in the national championship game. Meanwhile, JMU, I've seen nothing from them about the Dukes. And TJ brought up the interesting point that, maybe there's a reluctance from a lot of these schools to admit that they're losing guys and wishing them luck because it might just add on to the idea that they're a feeder program. I get that perception-wise. I get a lot of fans may not like it, but I don't think it's really going to change anything that's going on about that. Mike has chimed in, the same Mike, by the way, that I bumped into at the basketball tailgate the other day, not tailgate, but at the concession stand over in our favorite spot, LA Liberty Arena. And he mentioned this. It was a hell of a game last night. Fantastic. Surely JMU has to find a way to capitalize on the Signetti success, right? There were no numerous mentions of JMU on the broadcast, so they would be dumb not to do that. So first of all, I'll pause right there. I still have not seen that. Now, to get my usher on, I generally stop looking at, targeted social media. I'm not doing much scrolling in the hour or so leading up to the Fast Lane, unless it's like it was, a year and change ago, 4:15. Tony Bennett retired. Okay, well, when that happens, it's an emergency. Sports related, of course. But when you're talking normally, I'm not. So if I missed anything in the last hour, I ask for your forgiveness. But until then, I have seen nothing about that. And that's been, to me, the mind-blowing part that we've discussed throughout today here in the Fast Lane. Mike, by the way, has an interesting theory on this, on why Liberty leaning into a former Flame, CJ Daniels being in the national title game. Indiana, JMU, no mention of the many former Dukes, coaches and players being part of that championship that the Hoosiers won last night. Which, by the way, kudos to that fan base and to Indiana fans. I know there are 800,000 plus alumni. I know there are many more. But as a Philadelphia sports fan who got to see them win their first championship during my lifetime in 2008 when the Phillies won the World Series. And then got to see the first Super Bowl in my lifetime for the Eagles in the 2017-18 season. When you get a chance to experience your first, it's a unique level of bliss and excitement. And, it is so awesome. Lean into it and relish it. It's really neat. And I love that you can now experience that in college sports if you choose to go all in a way where that just wasn't going to happen because it was such an oligarchy back in the day where the haves were always going to be the haves. And if you weren't part of the blue blood, good old boys club, you couldn't get in. Now, it may upset people that love that hierarchy structure in life, but to those of us that may not ever be in that, it's actually kind of cool. Now, Mike adds on the JMU thing. Although their leadership has changed over almost entirely since Signetti has been gone, maybe there's not many people at JMU that even realize the connection. So I will pause for 5 seconds on that one. I think in the marketing department before the game last night, you could have had trepidation. But let me add this as well. I don't know how you don't realize the connection at JMU, despite the fact they've had a lot of turnover, not just with an athletic director and a president, but also obviously with Signetti leaving, and then his replacement, Bob Chesney, has taken the UCLA job, so he's out in LA, and you've got Billy Napier, who's now been the next JMU Dukes coach. There's got to be enough blood around there, and I am much more in the camp of hey, let's lean into who our identity is, than the hey, let's pretend that's not who we are. If good players come to you, they will bounce back. Liberty gave Evan Dickens a chance from Georgia Tech, and he had a good year, and it didn't matter. He wasn't loyal to Liberty. He was loyal to the financial opportunity. I don't blame him, but that's the way a lot of these people think and act. So that's just, it's where we are in college athletics. There are a couple of other nuggets, by the way, that are worth noting as well here when it comes to just the overall state of the college football playoff and what we've seen over the last handful of months. One of them is this. West Coast superfan Ben chimed in. The idea that you guys mentioned earlier on a Group of 5 playoff, it actually makes some sense. Let's run it back to the Division I AA type of system where so many of these schools played before. And your idea, Ed, of the spring window and a spring period for this type of football is at least interesting. I'd imagine some Power 4 would be aligned and check for some kind of free agency period anyway. I don't dispute that, but here's where people might say, would this idea ever fly? I think it has a better chance to have spring football with college football programs. And again, to me, football just has the feel of being a fall sport. But if the networks came to a JMU, a Liberty, these other schools and said, hey, this, whatever it is now, XFL, UFL, I can't keep up with all the spring leagues. I just generally operate under the presumption that the entrepreneurs get really excited about it. And then in 5 years, the rest of us realize, y'all can get excited about it all you want, but this ain't what we're signed up for. We got no emotional attachment to it. It's great in the first year. And then after that, people, the attendance and participation slowly dwindles to the point where it just is not financially solvent to operate. I'd be very curious about that. I get the reluctancy of embracing it, but I would think, my novice thought, I'm not a TV executive, there is a better chance of that than there is of anything else outside of this. So again, it's not the worst idea that's out there. Meanwhile, Mike, not the same Mike from the concession stand, a different Mike, has chimed in on overall the college football playoff. The college football playoff ultimately gets vindicated by Miami going as far as they did and having a chance to nearly win the national championship. But let's not forget, the college football playoff is not good with committees. Get rid of rankings until the last week. Honestly, computers just do a better job than normal people like us, particularly in the majority of the season with objective rankings. I will pause right there and say this. I like that idea. I would love it if ESPN, and I know we're an ESPN radio affiliate, but I would love it if they actually jumped on board with that concept because, at that point, you wouldn't have the hierarchical structure. And at that point, Notre Dame and Miami being bumped up against each other, you could adjust the way the system is set up completely differently. And let's keep it real here. If the ACC had the viable title game participant, it's probably Miami playing Virginia. And I think Miami would have beaten Virginia because Duke beat Virginia as well. More on that later. But this is the truth of where it's gone. There's a little bit more to add. Alabama did look terrible down the stretch. I don't think they ever should have been in to begin with. Texas A&M even had a light schedule. I would have had Miami and Notre Dame in the field over Alabama. But to quote Rob Littall, Notre Dame being mad at the ACC back when they vouched for Miami is like the side chick being mad that her man spends the holidays with his actual wife and kids. I think it's kind of funny, actually, to view Notre Dame as the side chick. I know they get offended when they're not viewed as anything but the number one woman. But, for the ACC, I would have vouched for Miami, and the exposure that they've got now with all the Clemson, Florida State turmoil, the ACC can basically say, I know y'all don't want to be in the ACC, but Miami does, and they're a better football program right now in this era of college athletics than either Clemson, whose coach doesn't want to embrace the portal, but he's got a $66 million buyout, so Dabo's not going anywhere, and Clemson just has to live with a coach that they continue to have to pay to not embrace the portal. And I love his morals and ethics, but I think it's worth bringing that up. And then there's Florida State, and they've had a lot of chaos. The ACC comes out winning a lot in this, and it's why you embraced Miami to begin with, and now you have a chance to point to a program and say, that is our blue blood right now going forward. Meanwhile, going forward into the fast lane, we've got more feedback on this as well. We've got thoughts. We will get to that a little bit later on, and we're not done with even the college football playoff selection committee because Tsunami Tommy has chimed in. Jeremy has chimed in. We want to be able to get to other people with their feedback, but we just need time for our next guest, Jon Manson from AseaofRed.com. So when we return, we will do that. The Liberty Flames, he'll weigh in with his thoughts on the topic we've discussed about the Flames embracing CJ Daniels being in the national championship game. Also, plenty on Liberty Flames basketball when we return. Here in the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app and Ask That Smart Speaker, open VTRN Sports.
Mark Dalton here with Terry Volkswagen. Get ready to fall head over heels for the perfect VW SUV. One size doesn't fit all, though, and that's why Volkswagen has an SUV for everyone. From the compact and affordable Volkswagen Taos to the tech-packed Tiguan and the spacious Volkswagen Atlas. No matter which one fits your lifestyle, you'll love the comfort, performance, and safety. Stop by Terry Volkswagen on Forest Road in Lynchburg or check us out online at terryvw.com. Terry Volkswagen. You'll love our cars.
At the Farmers Bank of Appomattox, we believe personal banking should be as rooted in the community as you are. Whether managing your business banking, saving for your family's dream home, or juggling daily expenses with our mobile app, we offer tailored solutions with a local touch. Experience the security of a bank that knows your name and the convenience of modern technology. Visit us today to grow your financial future right here at home. The Farmers Bank of Appomattox, your community, your bank, your future.
Is it time for a new place to call home? Moving out on your own? Perhaps your existing lease is up for renewal. Looking for a new roommate? Or maybe you just need a change of scenery. Then you need to check out brownstoneproperties.com. We have Central Virginia's largest selection of apartments, townhomes, and single-family homes. Applying is easy with our online application. Visit us online to begin your search at brownstoneproperties.com.
Hi, this is Bill Roth, voice of Virginia Tech football. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
We've weighed in aplenty. You have weighed in, and we are grateful for that. Fast Lane Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Jon Manson gets a chance to chime in with his thoughts as we welcome the founder and still very, very strong contributor to ASeaofRed.com with us here in the Fast Lane. Jon, great to be speaking with you as always. Not sure how much of our discussion you caught from earlier in the Fast Lane, but if not, Cliff Notes version is yesterday afternoon, someone at Liberty in their athletic department, marketing and social media department put the clip up of wishing former Flames wide receiver CJ Daniels good luck in the national championship game. JMU, they have not done that with any of their former Dukes who have gone on to win the national title with Indiana. We're on Team Liberty in this. It's creative marketing. It's probably not going to change exactly. The players might be leaving Liberty. Where do you stand on the idea of the Flames wishing a congratulations to a former Flame in the national title game?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. As always, it's kind of an interesting conversation and one that I had several conversations about yesterday, and it seems like a lot of the Liberty fan base, at least those that I talked to, was kind of split on the idea. And I think part of it is, and I kind of lean towards the old school mentality of like, if you're on my team, you're on my team, and if you're not, you're not. But I know that's changed a lot recently, and you can even see it in professional sports where players, are friends more so than opponents, and kind of different than the Michael Jordan era where if you're not on my team, you're the enemy. So I think it's changed a lot in today's culture and sports world where, and I think the part that I dislike the most of it from coming from Liberty is it kind of admits to the point that you are not competing with and playing the same level of football as a Miami. You're not competing for that, so you don't have a problem with your players leaving to go to that level. And I think going back to Jerry Falwell Sr.'s BHAG, as he used to call it, big, hairy, audacious goal was for Liberty to compete at the highest of levels in all of college athletics. And certainly Liberty, being at the FBS level, that has opened the door to a Fiesta Bowl appearance a couple of years ago. But now the way things have happened with NIL and transfer portal and the super conferences, and you're kind of getting to the point where Liberty and the Group of Five is really no longer at the same level, really, if we're honest about it. That they're kind of the new FCS, the new Division I AA, and I think it's just Liberty putting out a social media post or tweet like that kind of admits to that fact, and it may be a hard pill to swallow, but at the same time, I don't think there was any hard feelings or ill will towards individuals that left, and especially a C.J. Daniels. I mean, he went to first to LSU and received a rather handsome payday, and then I'm sure he did as well when he went to Miami and got the chance to play on that stage, and I'm sure it's improved his draft stock as well too. So I'm kind of torn on it. My gut is I kind of lean towards the old school mentality of, I'll celebrate the players that are on my team, and if you're not on my team, then you may as well be an enemy to me. But times have certainly changed in the last handful of years, and I'm sure they'll continue to change as well.
Yeah, they definitely will. I mean, it's a different era. You mentioned talking with a lot of people about this, and we will get to Liberty Flames basketball. We're not just trying to totally stir the pot on this, but and I did not go to Liberty to get my usher on here in the fast lane for just a second. So I probably have a different view on this. I went to a small liberal arts school in Memphis. It wasn't even the University of Memphis. So I don't have the emotional ties that a lot of people do to schools, although, again, full of confessions. Certainly it's better for business, the better our local teams in the area do, and Liberty is right at the top of that list for us. But you're around Liberty. You went there. You interact with a lot of Flames fans. You're obviously well respected. What's the sentiment you've gotten? Do you get more people that are upset by this idea, or plenty more people that realize, hey, Liberty's in a different ball game than even a Miami right now, and so maybe it's not the worst thing in the world to be upset about?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of split, and it depends on who you talk to. There's some that like it and think it's good, and it kind of says, hey, come here to Liberty, and we can put you on the level of playing for a national championship and bettering yourself and get to the next level. And it's kind of interesting, the Liberty wide receivers coach, Tony Washington, if you follow him on social media, when Dante Lee went to the portal just, a month ago or whatever it was, a few weeks ago, and obviously he ended up landing at Texas Tech. But after he announced his intentions to go to the portal, Liberty wide receiver coach Tony Washington retweeted Dante Lee's announcement of going to the portal and kind of applauded him and said, come to Liberty and we can get you to that next level. We can get you to the P4 and get you to that big payday. So I guess it's just a matter of how you look at the program. And currently, if we're honest and admit it, and it kind of ties into the should there be a G5 or a G6 playoff, kind of ties into that conversation, is like, if and when, because I think it's probably more a matter of when than if, we get to that model of there being a G5 or a G6 playoff, you're basically admitting that the G5, the G6 is not playing the same level of football as those P4 or even P2 teams are. And I mean, look at the rosters and how much money they're spending on the rosters. I mean, tens of millions of dollars to those Big Ten and SEC programs, and even some of the other Power 4 schools are shelling out that kind of cash. So obviously the Liberties, the JMUs of the world, they're not able to compete at that level in terms of financially. So when you have a players like a Dante Lee or a C.J. Daniels or a Caden Salter or an Evan Dickens, it's almost unheard of for you to be able to keep them because they're going to go and get that payday, and props to them. I mean, you probably follow it closer than I do because I'm all in on the Liberty athletic front. But like Carson Beck probably made more money in college football this year than he's going to make when he gets to the NFL. That's just the fact of the matter now. So these players, and Evan Dickens is no different. And I'm not singling him out or anybody else, but he's probably got a decent payday to go to Boston College, more than Liberty could have and should have really put forth to keep him. And as you're building out your roster, and good for him. Like he might make more money this coming season at Boston College than he ever will playing professional football. Look at Quentin Cooley and what he did at Liberty, and had two tremendous seasons before he graduated and went on and played in the CFL and got cut. Didn't even make a training camp roster of the NFL. So for some of these players, you can't really fault them. They gotta get paid when you can get paid. And I guess for a Liberty fan, a Liberty supporter, a Liberty alum, it's just the agony of admitting that you're not at the same level as those P4 schools are. because that's really the truth of the matter. And it's something Liberty fought so long for decades to get to the FBS, and then you finally get to that level, and you realize, is this the new FCS? And it's really kind of moving in that direction.
Yeah, it sure seems like that's the direction. And there, at some point, it might not be a direct split. Maybe it is. It might just be a financial split, and it kind of speaks for itself with where things are going. That would be a topic that I would love to get into, and we can do that in the off season. I need to, remind myself to make a note to ask you about it when we get past basketball and maybe even softball season for the Liberty Flames. First of all, since we brought up softball, how wild is it? Liberty's ranked in the ESPN softball poll in the top 25. And is some years a Liberty team being ranked in the preseason might be like, oh my goodness, this is a big deal. What does it say about where Dr. Dot Richardson has that program that I'm not going to say it's expected, but it's not even a shock that they could potentially be ranked to start the season, given what they did last year and their continued history of success under her?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of one of those things. I saw a news release of the softball top 25 coming out, and I immediately went and clicked on the link because I fully expected Liberty to be included in that, and they certainly were, checking in at number 23. But I mean, this is not a first. I mean, going back to 2019, this has happened 4 or 5 times now that Liberty has been ranked preseason in the softball top 25 poll. So, like you said, go and give all the credit to Coach Dot Richardson and what she's done. And obviously, the program went to an even higher high this past season, this past spring, getting up to the super regionals, knocking off Texas A&M. And as you know, Coach Richardson, she's not going to shy away from any challenges. So that you look at that Liberty opening, schedule, non-conference schedule. I mean, first day of the season, they're playing the number 4 team in the country in Tennessee, and they also have a rematch that opening weekend against Oregon, who's preseason top 10, the team that made it to the Women's College World Series and defeated Liberty in that Eugene Super Regional. So credit to them, and Liberty's got a lot of returners. I mean, obviously they lose some key players from last year, such as Rachel Roop, Elena Escobar, but Liberty's got a lot of key returners as well too. Think about it, like a Paige Dorr kind of broke out in the postseason, outfielder for the Flames, and others as well. So you would expect Coach Richardson to have Liberty competing once again at the top of the Conference USA and having their eyes set on even higher heights this coming spring. Getting back to the postseason regional play and hopefully another super regional, and ultimately the goal, getting to the Women's College World Series.
Jon Manson, he's at JC Manson and a Sea of Red are his Twitter accounts. By the way, John, to get my usher on once again, I meant to ask you while we were talking football and didn't want to wait any longer. Jalen Henderson, quarterback from West Virginia, most recently before that, Texas A&M, pretty good career completion percentage, about 63% of his passes completed, 6-2 touchdown to interception ratio. Small body of work, not a lot, but has that size, 6'3", 220, another big transfer quarterback that comes in. Is he competition for Purdy and Vasco? Is he a legitimate challenger? Where do you stand on the addition of Henderson, and if nothing else, the Flames going with much bigger athletic options in the quarterback room?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that Liberty was able to get someone the caliber of Henderson after it seemed like they had kind of gone all in on Purdy, the transfer from Wake Forest, and previously Charlotte. Just in terms of did Liberty have enough NIL cash available for another quarterback they could bring in to compete? And they've certainly done that with Henderson. And Henderson's a guy is very interesting. He, Liberty, go back and look last year, Liberty brought in 4 quarterbacks on campus for visits out of the portal. Obviously, Vasco was one of them and was the one Liberty went with, and Henderson was another. And so was Sluka, who ended up at JMU, the UNLV transfer. But those were the guys that Liberty was heavily pursuing, brought them, like I said, all in on visits. And Henderson was one of those, and Liberty decided to go with Vasco. And at the same time, Henderson went to West Virginia, kind of got lost in the mix there a little bit with their new head coach, Rich Rodriguez from Jacksonville State, as he returned to WVU. And he's a veteran. I mean, he's got 1 year of eligibility left. He was at Texas A&M for a couple of seasons and played sparingly and didn't play much his last year. and then transferred to West Virginia. Didn't play a ton there. I expect Henderson to be fully in the mix this spring and summer for that starting job, right alongside Purdy and right alongside Vasco. And obviously Vasco is going to be out all of this spring with as he recovers from that shoulder surgery that he had at the end of the 2025 season. So, it gives Liberty another veteran quarterback in the room to compete with Vasco and Purdy, like I said. And then you also got the young guys like an Ethan Houck and the incoming true freshman, Jacob Davis. So really like the looks of the quarterback room. There's going to be a lot of competition but amongst those top three, in my opinion. And we'll see who emerges. And maybe does one of those two, with Vasco not playing in the spring, do one of the two, either Purdy or Henderson, emerge as the top contender for the starting spot alongside Vasco, or maybe both of them prove enough in the spring to surpass Vasco, even if he does and when he does return in the summer. So I really like the addition and being able to have three guys to kind of battle it out. All three that I think, the coaching staff probably feels like they have the ability to win some football games. Obviously, Vasco and the team struggled at times this past season, but I think, they probably feel pretty good and feel like they've got an upgrade with both Purdy and Henderson, and may the best man win.
Jon Manson with us here in the Fast Lane. We're on W227BG Timberlake, WVGMA Lynchburg, WMNA Gretna, Danville, Southside. John, Liberty basketball, they have won 9 straight after the humbling loss at NC State. You've got a great article about that up at the top of aseaofred.com. But they did it in a little bit of adversity. They coughed up a 17-point lead at halftime on Thursday against New Mexico State. They had a lead of 16 in the first half against UTEP. That thing dwindled away with a real emphatic run over the last 3.5 minutes of the first half against the Miners before the Flames bounced back. Did you get the impression that halftime of that UTEP game Saturday is where Richie McKay reached the breaking point and said, look, I know I trust our seniors to guide us out of it, but maybe I need to provide a little tough love as well?
Yeah, it's interesting. In Coach McKay's press conference, post-game press conference Thursday night after the New Mexico State game, he was in a little bit of a different, I don't know if mood's the right term, but just had a different message that he was delivering, more critical message than what I've heard out of him in his past during his tenure at Liberty, 13 years now, and just a little bit of a different message and more critical than what you've seen in the past. And I'm sure he had a similar type message to the team Saturday at halftime against UTEP, because that's, now 3 times in the last 4 home games. You go back to the Kennesaw State game where Liberty had a 17-plus point lead that evaporated quickly, either late first half or early second half, and allowed those teams back into the game. And in New Mexico State's case, Thursday night, it came all the way down to the last shot of the game where New Mexico State knocks down that 3-pointer, which they had a good look at. Then, they would have handed Liberty a loss on its home floor. So, I think you just kind of got to realize, what Liberty is and where they're at in terms of this program. They got a lot of veteran leadership with Cleveland and Matheny and Porter, and even J.J. Harper and Brett Decker, who have been around a time or two and are veterans. Josh Smith as well, too. They're veterans, been around the game a long time and college basketball for a good portion of time. And, just kind of, figuring out what you got and where you're at and taking it one day at a time, like Coach McKay talks about so much, and not resting on your laurels and not looking up the scoreboard and like, oh, we're up 17, we're just going to coast to another victory. But, Conference USA, as Coach McKay alluded to, and we kind of wrote about in the article you referenced, is Conference USA is a one-bid league. So, I mean, you can even go 20-0 in conference play, and it really does not matter one bit. I mean, obviously you want to win every game, but what matters is when you get to Huntsville and those 3 games, potential 3 games you would play on your path to cutting down nets and winning a conference championship and getting back to the NCAA tournament, which is ultimately Liberty's goal. So Coach McKay is trying to get into his team about, we got to improve every day. It doesn't matter if we're, on a 9-game win streak and 7-0 in conference play. What matters is getting better every day because we got to be better and be at our best in March. And That's what they're ramping up for, and he hopes his team doesn't get persuaded or influenced by their recent success, but instead stays focused on the task at hand, which ultimately is those 3 games that 1 week in Huntsville in mid-March.
Time to take a detour in the fast lane.
Jon Manson with us here in the fast lane from ASeaofRed.com. Might be wondering what's going on here. You brought it up on the A Sea of Red podcast. And again, I will get my usher on. I was right with you and your crew last week when I listened to it Thursday morning at double the speed. And then right after I listened to it, the news broke about the FBI's investigation and the people that were implicated and indicted on the sports betting. And of course, the most notable one out of that is Kennesaw State's Simeon Cottle, who's the leading scorer, Conference USA Player of the Year candidate, clearly one of the best players in Conference USA from a talent perspective that had returned. Obviously, this is real breaking news. I'd be shocked if he plays another game anywhere, much less at Kennesaw State. How does that shake up the challengers to the Liberty Flames? Maybe not over the course of the rest of the Conference USA season, but when you're eyeing teams that might be threats to the Flames once we get to Huntsville in mid-March.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting story, obviously, that no doubt garnered national headlines, and understandably so. And I mean, Cottle is a leading scorer in Conference USA, averaging right at 20 points a game. And I agree with you. I don't expect him to play again this season. And I was actually, watching his game, Kennesaw State's game the night prior. They had a really slow first half, and then they kind of poured it on, including Cottle in the second half, and came back and won that game at home. And then the next day the news broke, and it was very shocking. But I think it does limit Kennesaw State's potential. Their ceiling for this season. I mean, obviously, you take off a talented player like that, it's going to have some impact. But I mean, and again, part of this was probably due to just, kind of rallying around your team type thing. Is they had a really good performance, maybe their best performance of the season over the weekend when they went on the road and picked up a win at Western Kentucky, a place Liberty will play Wednesday night, tomorrow night. And, so a very impressive win for them. And again, how much are they able to continue that success now as teams get film on who they are and what they are post-Cottle era? But you would expect Kennesaw, they were the preseason number 2 choice behind Liberty. You would have expected them to be in the mix. They're currently in that, I think there's a 4-way tie for third place, 3 games behind Liberty. Western Kentucky's amongst that group with 3 losses, as well as Kennesaw State. I would think it would have an impact on just their ceiling for this season. It really looks like, in my opinion, I think Middle Tennessee may be the biggest challenger to the Flames. And Liberty only plays them once this season during the regular season, and that's next week, weather permitting, obviously, on the road down in Murfreesboro. And then we'll have to see. I think Western Kentucky is another team, New Mexico State, who Liberty just saw here in Lynchburg at Liberty Arena the other night. I think those are maybe even the Sam Houston as well. I think they can get back in the mix. So those are some of the teams I expect to be at the top. But again, we're only 7 to 8 games into the conference play. And we got a full 20-game schedule of CUSA games each team's going to go through, again, weather permitting, once we get through it. And then you, like we were talking about a minute ago, you get to Huntsville, and you never know. One game, anything can happen. I could see any one of the 12 teams in Conference USA. I wouldn't be shocked at any one game that they win. But as far as being able to put together 3 straight games, I feel like Liberty certainly is the favorite. And I kind of mentioned those 3 or 4 top competitors I would expect to be there. Depending on injuries, they can always factor in as well too. But as we get into Huntsville, those are some of the 4 or 5 teams that I expect to be firmly in the mix for a championship push there in Huntsville.
Jon Manson with us in the fast lane. John, although we have to play this soundbite,
after Ed's potentially unnecessary detour, let's get back on the road in the fast lane.
We do get to wrap it up on a more optimistic note. Zach Cleveland, Colin Porter, Caden Matheny honored before that game against UTEP on Saturday over at Bel Air, LA Liberty Arena, for all reaching the 1,000 point mark. How cool was that to see them honored for the first of, good Lord willing, will not be the last time that the Flames fans get to experience honoring a core of Flames fans, of Flames basketball players.
Yeah, I mean, that was really cool and unique. Obviously, I mean, Liberty is one of only two programs in the country, Purdue being the other, that has currently has 3 1,000 point scorers at the current school they're at, on its team. And obviously Cleveland, Matheny, and Porter have meant a ton to this program the past 3 to 4 seasons. And I've already won the one championship last year and got to the NCAA tournament, looking to do it second straight season this year. And all 3 of them will be remembered amongst the greatest players Liberty's ever had. Whether that's a top 10 type finish, top 15, top 20, that could be debated. But the impact they've had on this program, it's hard to put into words. And for them to stick around and get it all done at Liberty, and staying, if you're Porter and Cleveland, your entire 4-year career at Liberty, which I'm sure each of them could have had the option or opportunity to go into the portal and perhaps seek additional, more money than what Liberty's paying them through NIL and rev share. But and then for Matheny, after transferring in from Bowling Green to conclude his final 3 seasons of eligibility at Liberty. I mean, it just kind of goes to what Coach McKay has built. And we've seen this before, like Darius McGee stayed his entire career and played all of it at Liberty, when I'm sure he could have gone in the portal and demanded a large sum of money as well too. So, but yeah, those 3, I mean, it kind of, the success the team's having, 15-3, 7-0 in Conference USA play, and the 15-3 start is tied for the second best in school history. All 3 of the best starts through 18 games have been under Coach McKay over the last 7 or 8 years. So they're a huge part of that. And like we were talking about, though, I mean, you're only not even halfway through conference play, so long ways to go. But those 3, as long as they can stay healthy and stay on the floor, I'm sure they'll got a lot more accolades coming their way postseason and as you get into the last half of this season as well too. So you don't see many players stick around for their entire career at the mid-major level, even the high major level. So what they've been able to do just speaks volumes to what this program is, and it's really a special group and something that Liberty fans and the Lynchburg community should really get out and support them and rally around them as they have stayed true to the Flames and trying to end their career with 2 straight conference championships.
Yes, that would be something Flames fans should rally around, should appreciate, and certainly it's been well warranted. Jon Manson from ASeaRed.com with us here in the Fast Lane. John, thank you for your time. Thank you for your perspective. We always love catching up with you. We're grateful that you were able to go a little long with us today, and look forward to seeing you over this coming Saturday, weather permitting, over at Bel Air Liberty Arena. Stay safe out there.
Sounds good. You do the same, Ed. Thanks for talking to you.
Our pleasure. Jon Manson with us here in the Fast Lane. That does it for us today. Thanks to TJ as well for sticking around a little longer than our normal time. Now on to Freddie and Harry, already in progress from ESPN Radio.
That can remain healthy for the entire season, because that has not been the case for San Francisco over the last few years. It's actually been something that's hurt them and the Detroit Lions. The inability to